All right, guys. What's going on, everybody? I'm your boy, Fatal Mephisto, and today I actually going to be giving you guys a nice little treat today. And I was really glad I was finally able to get this off and done, and whatever you want to call it. I've been wanting to get this interview going for a while, but due to my phone being limited, obviously I couldn't get that done. But now that I can, I'm really happy and really excited to be, able to finally interview you. So without further ado, let's get straight into this actual interview and get it popping. AJ, go ahead and introduce yourself, man.
Hi, yeah, great stuff. My name's AJ Grand Scrutton, so I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Dlala Studios, which is a independent game studio I founded in my garage with my former partner in crime, Craig Thomas. And I imagine most of your listeners will know me best as the game director on the 2020 Battletoads.
Excellent. All right, so let's get right into the actual questions because I don't want to take up too much of your time. So first question is, did you ever get a chance to talk to Tim and Chris about your reboot?
No, I didn't actually. It's quite an interesting one in the sense that I'm not sure how much contact a lot of the old Battletoads team have with Rare still. So we didn't directly speak with Tim and Chris, but we did obviously. I met with Greg Miles a couple of times, who I know from kind of working together on like Sea of Thieves. And also Paul Makachek is still there, and Paul heads up Test basically for Rare nowadays, but Paul was also on the original Battletoads team. And I think Paul was one of the guys that did, it may have been the Game Boy version, he did a lot of on his own. So whilst we didn't deal with Tim and Chris, we did still kind of get to have some chats with some of the original Battletoads crew, which was awesome, obviously.
Yo, that sounds like a treat, yo.
Yeah, brilliant. They're super great, super supportive. And even though obviously we were trying to do something very different with our Battletoads, it was still great to kind of get those guys that created this franchise to be playing the game and kind of hearing what they thought of it.
That's awesome. That's really cool. All right, so the next question I want to ask is, the feedback you guys received from fans at E3 were mixed. How long did it take you guys to address the actual concerns?
Yeah, so I guess we're talking E3 2019, yeah, the one where we did the first full trailer, not the teaser. Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Because we didn't really address anything off the back of that. Like, there wasn't anything that came up from the fans' backlash, however you'd like to call it, that actually made me sit down and go, "Oh my god, I need to make a change here." A lot of what the backlash was about was stuff what I'd anticipated. We knew going with the graphic style we were going for, it was going to cause kind of certain parts of the fan base to be upset. I especially knew that kind of doing a redesign on DQ was going to cause upset. So kind of a lot of that stuff was expected. And kind of what you saw at E3 and even in the trailer was really only about a month and a half's worth of actual production work on the game. We only entered full production on the game December 2018 was when we just finished pre-production. And then obviously by the time we kind of got into the new year, one thing kind of we'd agreed with Rare and Microsoft was like, look, we're not a 100-person AAA studio. We can't build conference builds and we can't do all this stuff for trailers. So effectively what we agreed was, when we got that first part of what would become Feed the Fantasy done, we effectively locked off that build at that point and made that our conference build and our trailer build. So, the game that got shown in June was actually like from February, March time. And the stuff that was in the trailer was just snippets that we could take at that point. A lot of kind of what was said, I think, negatively about the trailer as well was the animations were super framey. And the reason for that was we didn't have time to make bespoke animes for the trailer. So we literally just took the current state of like the in-game idols and the in-game combat animations and threw those into the trailer. So I don't think there was much that came out of E3 that we kind of sat down and went, oh crap, we need to swivel on. The one thing that did come out of the player feedback was, when that same build got shown at Gamescom 2019, that would have been around August, I think.
Yeah.
One of the I was reading through the comments, which I always tell my team not to do, but yeah, I still end up doing. And somebody had put I think they put in the comments like, "Hey, if you watch this video on 1.5 speed, it feels really good." And I sat there and was like, "Oh, if you watch this video on 1.5 speed, it feels really good." And then I put the video on that speed, and I was like, "Oh, it does feel much better." So I basically at that point I just went in with the design tools that Tech had made, and I just upped all the speeds of everything to just try it, and it genuinely did feel better. And kind of, so that was one constructive bit of feedback, and because it was constructive and it wasn't just like a throwaway insult, we sat down and then we looked at kind of what are the implications of this, and it was kind of off the back of that speed thing that we started cutting frames out the combat anims to make the combat punchier. We added run. Like run wasn't in there originally, so like if you ever see footage of people playing it at E3 and Gamescom, we used to have dash. So dash was basically the evade move for combat that was available at all times, and because players will always take the fastest route, everyone was just dashing through the level and it looked atrocious. So kind of off the back of that bit of work as well, we added in run outside of combat so that if players wanted to move faster, they could use that. And I think that was really the main thing for me that came off the back of like the feedback and the backlash we got from the 2019 showings of the game. It was the big thing we took away was, hey, like, look, people are responding to the art how we expected them to. But this comment here, this thing about making the game faster, like this has genuinely made the game better. So yeah, that's kind of the main stuff that came off the back of it.
Yo, that's wow. So that's definitely interesting because what you just basically explained there really does shine a lot of insight when it comes to like smaller developer teams like indies and whatnot. And a lot of people don't like take that for granted because they don't see what's really actually going on. That's crazy. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like you've got to be really careful. Especially when you're bringing back a beloved old franchise like BT. You're always riding that line of like, how much do you pay as fan service? And like for me, I wasn't looking to make a Battletoads game for Battletoads arcade fans from '94. Like the way I kind of went about this from day one of pitching the game was, look, my favorite games as a kid were Battletoads and Battletoads Double Dragon. But I don't want to make a game for AJ back in 1991. What I want to do is I want to make a game for the AJs that exist now, like for the kids who are the age I was then, but they're at that age now, and they don't want the same BT I wanted. They don't want BT Arcade. They want something different. And I know, like for me, I wanted to bring my influences into it, and you can see a lot of when you play the original Battletoads and Battletoads Arcade, you can see those artists, those animators, and those designers' influences in the game. And so when we made BT 2020, I wanted us to do the same thing. And the kind of shaping media of my life had been cartoons and comics. So, it was a no-brainer for me when I was looking at styles. I wanted to introduce that Earthworm Jim style. I wanted to bring in the Cartoon Network aesthetic. I didn't want to go for the gritty heavy metal because the guys had done that.
Right.
I wanted to do that was like more reflective of kind of what I felt a Battletoads game was. And that was really about cartoons.
Yes, and I agree. Actually, you know what? You just answered the next question I was going to ask you. So thank you for that. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Like the art style, I absolutely adore it because I grew up watching a lot of cartoons too as well. I was there when Ninja Turtles was popping. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And like, well, kind of like to add to that question, I guess. Like, you remember when Tim and Chris actually came out with like the whole entire idea of the original Battletoads, right? And to like kind of compete with Turtles. The one at the time.
Yep.
So I'm wondering, like, I'm really glad that you actually, like, I'm not sure if that was a reference towards, like, the art style or not, but I do appreciate that, though, because I'm pretty sure, like, they wanted the game to look a little bit more on the cartoony side, but due to limitations of the NES hardware, it couldn't be done.
Definitely. Look, I'd never want to speak for the guys that worked on it previously, but there was guys we spoke to who worked on the original game, like, Kev Bayliss reached out and stuff, and he was lovely, and a lot of what those guys were saying is exactly what you've said there. It's like, hey, look, if we could have made the game look more cartoony back then, we would have done. And I'm not saying they would have made it look exactly because as cartoony as we did, and I'm sure they would have still kept the heavy metal influence in there. But
of course.
It's exactly that, right? Like it was all like the stuff I remember when I think about Battletoads 91 is like all the Tex Avery influence, you know, eyes popping out of the head, the tongues rolling out, like all the big over the top animations. And that, you know, for when we build a game, we always build like around 3 core pillars. Like we figure out what are the 3 core pillars for this project, and one of the core pillars was a playable cartoon. So that was our goal from day one. That, you know, when this game came out, we wanted people to be telling us that it felt like they were playing a cartoon.
Yeah, you definitely achieved that, because all the comments that I've seen from people that actually went through it and beat it, like, hey, get it, you know, get this on an actual Cartoon Network, put it on Adult Swim.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, it's lovely. The response has been lovely in that sense, and I absolutely adore. You know, I'm the one that controls our Twitter, so I absolutely love, you know, putting out their hashtag season 2 when, and seeing people asking for the Netflix show. Like that stuff all just warms my heart.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, one thing I remember watching, I was watching an interview that you did. I can't remember what YouTuber it was, but I remember you saying about the original version of the Turbo Tunnel was actually a lot harder than what it is in the game now currently.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that got me thinking. I was just like, you know, that would be an awesome anniversary update or a DLC to come out for that for a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think very early on we had that conversation when we realised we were going to pivot away from what we designed and more towards something a little bit more friendly. You know, we've still got every iteration. We probably did. I mean, Grant, our lead designer, actually built that himself. That, like, he designed that whole track out, and I reckon we did 20 to 30 iterations on that track, like actual fully finished end to end iterations.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's ironically, you know, the version we've got now is the easiest by a long way. And, you know, I think you probably heard me say in another interview, like, we genuinely thought the game was probably a 5 or 6 out of 10 difficulty wise, because we were so close to it. And then it came out and everyone was a bit like, yeah, this is more like an 8 out of 10 difficulty. And we were like, oh crap. And I think if what we released is an 8 out of 10 difficulty, then I think that the track we had before it was probably a 10 out of 10. It was absolutely brutal. I mean, the E3 track was pretty brutal, and that was literally only a third of the total size. But yeah, we had some really, really brutal versions, and it would be great for them to see the light of day one day. You know, that's very much a you know, if Rare ever want to have the conversation about that, you know, of course we will. You know, I think we'd definitely be interested in doing a little bit more bits and bobs like that kind of for the game. But yeah, it definitely was brutal. I'm sure we can. I'm sure, you know, I'll be speaking to them again at some point soon. I'm sure if nothing else, we can probably upload a video of how brutal the old tracks were.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, just like be able to see how difficult that was, because you said like that wasn't even a fraction of the original length of the original. Oh my lord.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
The one at E3, I think the one at E3 went to the second tunnel, and I think, well, in the track changed a little bit, but basically I'd probably say it was about a quarter of the way through, maybe a third at most.
Wow.
Yeah, it's horrible. Something wrong with Grant, I tell you.
But hey, hopefully that will come true one of these days. We'll see.
Yeah, well, you know, I'd definitely love to share it. If nothing else, I'm sure that Rare will let us do a stream of at least the E3 build ourselves at some point, if it's not the full track.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. All right, well, even though I wrote this down as my last question, but I do have one other one that I just want to add. This one here is basically okay. So let's say in the foreseeable future, Rare comes back to you and says, "Hey, we'll definitely get a sequel going." Because I know I'm sure you heard about where I'm going with this one, but not in that entirety though. But yeah. So if you ever were to make a sequel to Battletoads, what would you change in the sequel that you would have changed in the first game?
Oh, first of all, how do you know that we've not had any conversations about it?
I'm gonna keep that under the
radar. No, we're not. I can promise you, we're not currently making anything Battletoads related at this point. But definitely not ruling it out. Yeah. Look, we've got. So I wrote Battletoads with my friend Tom, who was our lead writer. So Tom he's TV and cartoons. So like he was one of the lead writers on Rick and Morty. He was lead writer on Loki for Marvel. And so kind of we really approached building like and writing the game a little differently in the sense that, you know, I didn't want to take these awesome TV writers and make them write the game in a game style, and I didn't want to take our game team and try and make them make a TV show. So what I did is I became this bridge where I let the writers use all their writing techniques like they would in TV, and then I translate that over for the game team and vice versa. But it very much meant that there was stuff we had to cut from BT1, which we absolutely adored. That will definitely make its way into a sequel if we got the chance. And Tom and I have definitely batted around some ideas for like the main plot points for what we do with a sequel. In terms of what we change, it's really interesting, right? Like there's stuff I would change that I don't want to, that I'd have to. So obviously people really, you know, were really upset we didn't do online. And it was just never one of our goals. You know, one of our pillars was, you know, same room co-op. We just had no way of predicting there was going to be a worldwide pandemic.
Exactly. Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
But you know, but we definitely do online if we were to do a sequel, right? But what that would mean is that we'd have to slow down things. Like combat couldn't be as fast as it was in BT 2020 because then you'd have serious like lag issues. Certain game types just wouldn't have worked as well. You know, the way we did multiplayer in free top-down space shooters, like we couldn't really do stuff like that because any form of lag at all would probably kill the feel. So I think we'd be more aware of that. Things I would have loved, things I would have changed that I'd actually want to change. I mucked up in a couple of places on BT 2020. Now, for the record, I love BT 2020. It's the biggest thing I'm the most proud of by a country mile. But there was a couple of key plot points that I had to make cuts very, very late in the day, but I didn't have the time or resource to fill them. And you can genuinely feel that in the game. Like you can feel when you beat Axley and you suddenly go into that weird gymnast Olympic level, there was actually a different level there in between them, which had more of the story, which explained how you got from the lumberjack land to the gymnast land. And that level, we got to the point where, look, it wasn't hitting where it needed to, and we didn't have the time or the resource to art it. So we cut that level. And we went straight into the Olympic bit, but the problem is I didn't have time to put something in between. I didn't have time to do another cutscene. I didn't have time to do anything that really patched that up. So obviously you just jump from beating Axley into this weird Olympic minigame section that I love. But narratively, you know, it's a little bit all over the shop. And there's a couple of moments like that I've learned a lot of lessons from as a director. You know, there's stuff we're doing in pre-production on our current project where I'm already tackling those problems ahead of time because I'm so scared of doing the same thing. So I think that would be the stuff I'm super aware of on BT, and I think that we would take action like to do a sequel to make sure that any of those severe cuts would come a lot earlier. We'd do a proper pre-production, we'd have more of it sculpted out, so we'd know that, you know, like, hey, we're going to go from this plot point to this plot point. Like if something in the middle changes, then this stuff is fine. This stuff will stay intact. So yeah, so like there's not much I changed gameplay wise. Like I genuinely love the game we made. You know, I probably played it end to end in that last 6 months. I probably played it end to end probably 150 times.
Jesus.
Every time, I'm just so paranoid, man. Every time we did a new build that was potentially the build, I would have to play it end to end, and then I'd have to play it end to end in multiplayer to know that it was working.
So like, of course, yeah.
Like, yeah, every single time, you know, we'd find something. It'd be a little thing. Nope, we're going to fix that. Okay, we're going to do a new build. So the new build would build, and then I'd have to play it end to end, single player, multiplayer. Just because, like, it's not that I didn't trust our QA team. It's just that I wouldn't have been able to sleep knowing that there was a version of the game going out that I hadn't played. And, you know, thanks to the quality of our team, like how good my team are and how good QA were, like one of the things I've never seen a complaint for really is anything about bugs in the game.
Nope.
If there had been, and it'd been like I could have seen them by playing the game, I never would have forgiven myself. So yeah, I getting back onto your question. Sorry, I've gone off on a tangent.
Hey, no problem at all, man. No problem at all.
Yeah, look, I love BT 2020. There's stuff we would change to make it work better online if we were going to do a sequel. There's stuff that was cut that I absolutely adored that would go back in. But I don't think there's anything necessarily gameplay wise I'd change. Like there's nothing I don't look at it and go, oh, I do this differently or I do that differently. It's more like the stuff that I'm probably the only one that is aware of that it doesn't feel polished enough for me. I'd go back and do that.
Ah, see right there, folks. Passion. That's what I call passion. Wow, that's crazy. Yo, okay, so you mentioned earlier about like the metal feeling, right, from the original game.
Yeah.
In a way, you kind of achieved that in a way when it comes to the actual soundtrack, the music itself, like speaks like that metal vibe thing. So it's like a mixture of both.
Yeah, I mean Dave Housden, who is my long-term composer partner and friend, like he absolutely just murdered it on that soundtrack. It's just phenomenal.
Oh God, yeah.
I was absolutely devastated. He didn't get any nods for any award nominations for it, to be honest. And I think maybe if it had come out a different year to Doom, like so that there wasn't 2 rock soundtracks, I think maybe he would have. But yeah, look, he just, one of the things about being the game director is you often get credited for like other people's work, and most of the time I can't take credit for any of it. Like really, my team's just amazing, and they could do amazing things without me. But Dave got some of the worst briefs you could ever get in the world, and he turned them into absolute gems. I mean, when we sat down to do, and I told him we were doing this, and I had to have him on board, and he was like, "Okay, well, what are we talking about?" And I was like, "Look, I think we're going to be talking about everything from influences like the Power Rangers theme song through to circus music. Like I was sending him everything from like hair metal to Mr. Bungle to just the most diverse range of songs. And it was like, it's not like he could sit down and just write a metal score. He had to wait for like these briefs to come in and what these levels were about. Like when he was looking at the prototypes and he saw the prototype for Toad Shambo, our kind of rock paper scissor game, he was like, what do you want for this? And I was like, just like over the top Japanese style, like rock fighting game music. And he was like, really? And I was like, yeah. I was like, in the Toad's heads, this would be the most epic game in the world, even though it's literally a really, really bad version of rock, paper, scissors. And then he just absolutely smashed it on that track for Toad Shambo. Yeah, he was literally turning really, really crappy briefs into probably my favorite video game soundtrack. If like definitely my favorite video game soundtrack of the last 10 years, if not one of my favorite video game soundtracks of all time, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I can definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah, it's but yeah, I think that definitely that metal influence still comes through there. And I think one thing that Dave definitely deserves credit for as well is and the new versions you hear of old tracks, like the remakes of the David Wise tracks, like that wasn't forced on him by Microsoft or Rare or by me. That was Dave going, hey, like I actually think this track from Battletoads or this track from Battletoads Double Dragon, I think this would work really great in this level. And then he'd ask me like, hey, are you cool with me doing a new version of it? It's because he knew I was the one who, when I was making this game, I didn't want to lean on the legacy. Like I didn't want to use the legacy as a crutch that we like to stand up on. And I told him originally, like, hey, I just want this 100% originals. But he was the one that passionately fought for the fact that, fans will really appreciate if we put this track in. It works really well with this level. And that's why, like, our Turbo Tunnel had a brand new track. But then when you get to, oh, God, I'm trying to remember what the actual final names were for some of these levels. The level where you're surfing on the Diplomat's head when you're on Jeff. I can't remember what the final I can't remember what the final level name was for that at the moment. But yeah, that level was the one where he used the original Turbo Tunnel track and did a new version. And it just works so well.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So that all the credit for kind of pulling off that kind of that metal influence into the soundtrack 100% goes to Dave Housden. Like he absolutely just did a phenomenal job on that.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite soundtracks too as well, 2020 by a mile. I had so many songs on repeat for days, even when I went to bed. I know that sounds corny, but yeah, the soundtrack is that good. But yeah,
no, well, he'll love hearing that. He's the most modest guy in the world. Like he does not blow his own trumpet at all. But yeah, he did such a good job on that soundtrack.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely thanked him on Twitter too as well, and yeah, I made sure of that. Yeah, definitely thanked him for that. But yeah,
No, brilliant.
I that's it. If I don't have any more questions, unless you want to add something in, you're more than welcome to.
No, no, not at all. I mean, obviously you're mistreated. That was the name of that level. Yeah, you're welcome to obviously ask anything you like. If you've got anything else that wasn't kind of on the email, please feel free to kind of to ask them. But yeah, like, look, for me, I'm just super grateful for people like yourself who, really connected with the game. As cheesy as that sounds, but like, no, we genuinely are. Like, um, the E3 2019 backlash was very hard, especially on the team to see, and then the way it positively turned around when that footage came out, the 20 days before launch, and that positivity has just remained, and like, still to this day, we get lovely tweets about people who are first discovering the game on Game Pass or playing with their families. So yeah, like, sorry if you can hear snoring. My pug's on my lap snoring away.
Oh, you have a pug?
Oh yes, Hugo.
Oh man,
Hugo. He's actually in the game. So if you walk through at the carnival, the second combat level after the turbo tunnels, when you're in the haunted house, there's actually a painting on the wall of a evil pug, and it's based on Hugo.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, the artists love him, and they sneak him into every game we do. But yeah, look, no, we're super grateful for people like you, and like, it does really mean the world to us. And even though obviously we're making something different now, and we're not playing in that universe, we will always, 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 have a very, very special place for BT 2020 and kind of the people that have really enjoyed it. And I'm kind of looking forward to this lockdown being over, and hopefully going out there and getting to play the game with some people at some point. I've not, besides the people I work with, and most of them I haven't seen now for over a year. I've not really had a chance to experience playing Battletoads 2020 with any of my friends or family yet. So hopefully I get to cross paths with people like yourself in person one day, and we can do a playthrough together.
Yeah, no, absolutely, of course. Yeah, it's one game that's never going to be deleted off of my Xbox.
Well, I really appreciate that. Like, we genuinely do. Like, yeah.
And you're more than welcome, man. You're more than honestly, like, it's a real shame too as well, because like the way you guys have come up and literally took what made Battletoads special for me as a kid, because it was the first game that I played that ushered me into the beat 'em up genre, which turned out to be my favorite genre of all time. So I have a lot of respect for this franchise. So when this game came out, I was immediately excited. Like, even all the way back in 2018 when you showed off the teaser trailer and people were like, "Oh, we don't know how the game is going to look." I'm like, they showed you the art style at the end of the teaser trailer, and then it turned out that I was right.
Well, I think I've said this publicly now, but the reason there was nothing else in that teaser trailer is because nothing else existed.
Right.
I think I signed the contract, I think, the Thursday, and then I flew out on the Friday or Saturday, and then it was E3 on the Sunday. So that trailer, I think we came in. We were sandwiched between two like $100,000 trailers, and our trailer cost about $3,000. It was put together by the guy who used to do my music videos when I was in a band when I was younger. Eric, our lead animator, animated the turbo bike crashing into the wall. And then I paid some guy on Fiverr to do that voiceover to a script I wrote in in like a day, basically. So yeah, like that was hilarious for me, because everyone was like, "Oh my god, why aren't they showing gameplay? They don't have faith. They're not showing gameplay." And it was like, literally, what you were seeing, that is everything at that point in time, besides a pitch deck, that exists for that Battletoads game.
Yeah, because I remember you saying it, and I think in the same interview that I brought up earlier, I remember you saying something about like you end up getting an email or something like that, like given the green light like 2 days or like a couple days before the actual E3 event.
Yeah, so no, that would have been that was a couple of weeks beforehand. That was
a couple of weeks. Okay.
Yeah, we'd been pitching it for a couple of years. We'd been pitching this concept for BT, and Rare loved it, and like Microsoft loved it, but there wasn't. Game Pass didn't exist, right? So there wasn't really the sorry about the snoring. There wasn't really the financial way of getting this game funded, because Idea Xbox doesn't fund anything really above 150K or more. At the time, they didn't. Xbox Game Studios, or Microsoft Game Studios as they were at the time, funded, you know, your 30, 40, 50, 100 million projects. And so kind of for something that sits around that $5 million range, like there wasn't a way for Microsoft to fund it. So it kind of dropped off at that point. And then, yeah, Sea of Thieves came out, did really well. Game Pass came out, was picking up speed. One day out of the blue, I just got an email from Craig, who runs Rare, and he said, hey, like, look, about to touch down Seattle, which is where Microsoft headquarters are, and said, look, if the Battletoads conversation comes up, are you guys still interested? And, you know, I was like, yeah, of course. From a studio perspective, not only did we really want to make Battletoads, but we only had about 7 months of money in the bank at that point as well. Like we were not doing great. And so, like, you know, I left it at that. I just thought, oh, well, you know, that's nice. If they think of us, they think of us. And then, yeah, the next day I got an email from Craig and it just said, hey, dude, about to go into meetings for a few hours, so I'll be unreachable, but we are go. And that was it. And that was all it said. And I've just had a breakdown at my desk. I was like, we are go. Like, what does we are go mean? Like, what does that mean? And,
right.
You know, and finally, like hours later, I got hold of Craig and he was like, hey. And I was like, hey, what a hey? I was like, what does we are go mean? And he's like, what do you think it means? We're making Battletoads. Like, that was it. You know, at that point, we were making Battletoads. And one of the caveats, which wasn't really a caveat, was they wanted to announce it on stage at E3, which was like 2 weeks later. So, like, you know, we pulled the stuff together in our evenings to make that trailer work. None of that mattered, you know. Whatever they'd have said, we'd have jumped through that hoop at that point because we were getting to make, you know, a dream game that we'd really wanted to do and that we'd put, you know, a lot of time of our lives into creating a concept for. So yeah, it was very crazy. It literally felt like it came out of nowhere, even though, you know, 6 months before that we'd been, you know, trying to find a way to make it work for a year, 2 years.
Man, that's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, it's great, and it's nice to see, you know, that and I mean, it's especially nice for me because I'm on the positive end of it. But like, you know, it's very easy to become complacent or to become a little bit jaded with the industry sometimes.
Yeah.
But the fact that moments like that can happen, the fact that, you know, a studio like ours, who just fell on bad luck for bad times, could be so close to kind of the worst thing happening, and then out of nowhere, you know, the next thing we know, you know, we're making Battletoads. We've, you know, the studio's gone from 11 people to 26. You know, and now we've got this game out there that's been played by, you know, millions of people. Yeah, it's really nice, you know, that there's still ways to be surprised in this day and age.
Yeah, no, and I'm really glad to see that a lot of people played this. I'm really, really, like, very, very proud to see that a lot of people on Xbox actually gave this game a shot, especially on a service like Game Pass too as well, you know what I mean? So, really, really glad that took off.
Definitely. Game Pass has been incredible. You know, this was a title aimed at a Game Pass audience, and it found that audience. And what's exciting for me, you know, is as the world starts leaving lockdown, you know, once everything kind of gets back to whatever the new normal is, I really hope we see like a spike of people getting to enjoy it with their friends for the first time. You know, those people that were angry at me for not putting online in, I hope that at least some of those get to kind of get in a room with someone they've not seen for a year and a half, and play through our very, very stupid game.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys are going to be doing in the future, because I know you said earlier that you were working on a new project, so I'm pretty sure you can't talk about that here, but...
No, I'm afraid not. I promise you I would if I could.
Of course. Yeah, no worries, man. I totally get that. It's no problem. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to whatever you guys are making going forward. I'm definitely going to be gunning for it for sure. Day one, automatically on my list. So,
thank you very much. No, honestly, it does mean a lot. And I know it sounds like a cheesy marketing line, but I assure you, I'm not a cheesy marketing person. Like, you know, the support does mean everything to us. So yeah, really do appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. Well, I want to thank you so much, man, for taking the time to come out and give me the chance to finally talk with you, man.
No problem at all. You know, I'm sorry it took so long to actually get something on the books, but I'm very, very happy we got to do it.
Hey, no worries. I was on a cell phone anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered because they wouldn't be able to hear you on my phone anyways, because there's no internal audio recording on an Android phone. So,
okay.
But thank you so much for coming out, man. I appreciate that, man, and thank you to everybody in the chat and everybody that's watching too as well. And again, thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time for everything, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your support.